Annie-chan, これは何ですか？この絵、何ですか?
You want me to describe what I'm doing?
日本語上手ね。友達ね。
Is that a yes?
Sure.
Hi. So we are doing a thing called Chigiri-e,
Chigiri-e.
and it is taking torn pieces of paper and using glue, and you glue a little spot on your paper. Do you want to show them? Glue a little spot because yours is easier to see.
So you're going to dip into some watered down glue or Mod Podge, but glue is cheaper. You're going to dab a little bit on your paper where you want it. You have very small pieces of paper.
They have to be pretty small.
Put the paper you want on the spot, and then you go over it like a collage. You go over it with a wash so that
it looks like that.
Now, Chigiri-e is Japanese, but not just Japanese. Chigiri-e in Japanese is like this. It is a kind of what?
Collage.
It was originated in China, 200 BC. Then it went to Japan in the 10th century.
Wait, were you alive in the 10th century?
Very funny. And then it went to medieval Europe in the 13th century, and from there on it spread.
I was alive then.
She lies. So we're doing a Japanese style art project because of the book we're going to share with you called Somewhere Among
by
Annie Donwerth-Chikamatsu, published in 2016 by Athenaeum Books, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster.
And the entire book takes place in Japan. And in the book, she does Chigiri. Emma,
the main character.
Yes, Emma, the 11-year-old girl, does Chigiri-e.
Chigiri-e.
As a card for her American grandparents. She is part American. Her mother is from California, and part Japanese. Her dad is from Tokyo.
Indeed. Now, this book is a middle grade book. It is done in free verse. Hand me the book so I can show them the beauty of this book. Oh, thank you. So it is done in free verse for reluctant readers, for readers who sometimes get daunted by a book that's this thick. They're going to see this and they may not be as hesitant to dig in. This is a deep and resonant book, and the main character draws you in to her world, and in no time do you feel like you're lost just because this is set in Japan.
No, and I've never been to Japan, and I loved learning about it. It was fascinating.
Annie Donwerth-Chikamatsu, the author, she very skillfully weaves in context clues and sometimes specific descriptions if she's using Japanese words, but there's not a lot of Japanese words in here. An awful lot of it is contextual and very easy to imagine the kinds of things that the main character Emma is going through and seeing, and some of her favorite things to eat and her favorite things to do along the way of this very difficult time in her young life.
Yes, and the book opens up with a lot of fear, such as they're living with Emma's Japanese grandparents in the first place because her mom is having a very difficult pregnancy after not being able to carry a pregnancy for a while. Her dad has to stay in their apartment because the commute is too long for him to his job. So Emma, well, thanks for that. Thank you. Emma and her mother move in with her Japanese in-laws / grandparents, who neither one of them know very well. And so they're in a new place, relatively new. I mean, they know the place, but not really. Never lived there.
They've been there for visits.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Her mother is fearful about losing this pregnancy, and so is her father. And then on top of that, she has to go to a new school.
The book takes place for about 6 months out of Emma's life, from the summer that they were supposed to go to California and couldn't because of mom's pregnancy, to just into the new year, the following year. Now, the thing about Emma is that she has lived, from what it seems in the book, her whole life in Japan. And she speaks Japanese fluently. English is something that she constantly needs her mom to, kind of read books to her. And she's
to remind her, because she doesn't use it.
She goes to a Japanese public school, so she's very comfortable speaking Japanese. But because she's half American, she doesn't look fully Japanese. And her teachers and other students sometimes think that she's not understanding what's expected of her, that she doesn't understand how to act at different times. It's something that it frustrates her a lot.
And they bully her at times, the
And
kids
they bully
do.
her at times. You get a picture of, just kind of the challenges that can happen when you're living between
Cultures.
Living between cultures.
Or
And
living in two cultures, really. One of the things we love about this book is that it shows this idea of inclusion from the other side, from the side of the one not being included.
Yeah.
And what decisions does Emma have to make to either decide she wants to be included and accepted, or decide she's going to stay true to herself, or she doesn't care. Then she has to make some decisions about who she wants to be in order to be accepted and included or not. Yeah. So it really runs through our whole continuum of fear to curiosity to acceptance to inclusion, but from the other side. So I think that for many people, students, teachers alike, a lot of us have had outsider experiences, and then we've had to make decisions, or they've been made for us, I guess, if you're a child, about how far do you want to go to be included or accepted.
Now, Chigiri-e, as you saw us doing this is probably, you're going to need either multiple, at least 2 sessions to do this, or one reasonable chunk of time because of the small paper. You can use recycled jars that have lids, and you can use the glue again the next day with a little stir and add a little water. And it can be any paper you want. Tissue paper is especially beautiful in this kind of art form, but you can really use any scrap paper, including magazines. But the trick is to make it small so that when you get it together, it looks like you've painted it. It looks like you can see the distinct things. Now, this is supposed to be a bento, but my construction paper supply was limited today. In the story, Emma has a sports day, which is a whole school kind of competition in different kinds of sports, and then dance performances.
Like our version of field day.
Yeah, it's a little bit like field day. And people bring bentos, and the students bring bentos, and Emma's very proud of the bento that her grandmother, I'm not sure who made it for her,
I don't remember.
but all the students compliment her on it, and she was very proud of having it. She felt she had a moment of really belonging and inclusion there, because they were seeing her through this, so they weren't focusing on her differences. They were focusing on what brought them together.
They have in common.
Things they had in common. You might ask why I'm using this. For a project like this, to use a whole sheet of paper like this is going to be a very big project using this kind of art technique. So I automatically limit the field, and I'm a big fan of index cards. All sizes of index cards, there's one size bigger than this, and it just automatically gives you a thicker paper surface that can absorb the glue. See how nicely it's not buckling, it's not, it's just really drying nicely, but it gives you a controlled space. Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be. So this is Emma's NASA pen that she got from her Gramps in California, because he's a space nut, and she's become a bit of a space nut through him. Mm-hmm. So it's probably a little hard to read, but voila, this is my first Chigiri.
Now, she comes in and says, I don't have any artistic skills.
Yes, I don't have any.
For somebody who says, I can't do art, this is tremendous. It's a pen. You can tell. You can read the word. I can read the word NASA.
You can read NASA?
I can read NASA.
Really?
But it's true to the art form in that you've done a beautiful, this tiny, tiny paper giving texture like paintbrush strokes on it.
Jeez, thanks.
Yeah.
Yay.
I would encourage you to really dig into issues of inclusion and acceptance in this, because I think you dig deep enough and it's going to really give you a different perspective.
I agree, especially because, as we said, it's coming from opposite of what we often highlight on this channel, which is the person who's the outsider deciding about inclusion, as opposed to encouraging the majority to include. It's about the minority deciding.
It brings up how much we sacrifice sometimes for the sake of blending in.
Yeah, belonging.
And as much as we want inclusion to happen,
but at what price?
Yeah, there's a price sometimes paid, and this book raises some of those issues. And I think they're very worthy to dig into, especially now. So, what else do you have to add? Are we done? We did beautiful art.
Done. We did art.
Art, tiny papers.
Woo! And for those of us that find ourselves in the dominant group, because we're not always dominant, I would ask you to choose to include. Sayonara.
Sayonara. Kids get All right.
What do you think?